I'm Mara Menzies.
And I'm John Mukeni Namai.
We are both storytellers from Kenya.
Together with the meteorologists, we travel to the climate frontlines of northern Kenya to discover how people there are using indigenous knowledge to adapt to climate change. This podcast, Listening to the Rainmakers, shares what we learned on our journey.
Episode 7. We need to find new ways to tell stories.
We met the family of pastoralists, the elder, having a meal of ugali and their nutritious vegetable made of blood that will keep them sustained for the whole day. They shared lots of information on their ways of life and indigenous technology network that guides them to look for pasture and where it will rain, and also where we have dangers within the community. They even sang to us, and they do it collectively. We left to meet other elders in town, and in town we passed a chief baraza. A baraza is a local meeting where the judiciary had come, visited the county, and they were talking to the locals. We entered the chief's compound. His homestead is gated, it has water, looks developed, looks a modern home. We conducted the interviews with the wazees who cladded in military gear. We rechanged the format of the interviews and started with breaking ice with the help of the translator. It leveled the ground, and interviewing them realized they complain a lot of the abandonment of their old ways. Women, children do not listen to the elders anymore, and this makes God angry, and it has contributed to the climate issue in the area. Amongst talking to the elders more, we realize that there is a big challenge of intergenerational loss of knowledge. Elders and youth don't sit down anymore. Lots of issues on rapid urbanization. The rapid urbanization is slowing their ways. And some of the elders shared some really, really interesting stories on foretelling on what will happen on the town. Mara closed with a story of a man and his ears. They loved it, and one elder who loved the monkey bit, and earlier he shared a nice story about the squirrel, the monkey, and the ostrich tail, and also the lion. The boy with the kettle who disappeared into the mountain, not wanting to share it with the community. Quite interesting story, because it shows like the reflection, what knowledges do we get from the folktale, and it shows what the elders want a community of sharing. It also reflects that they are a community of sharing.
Yeah, I think, certain from my experiences compared to Turkana as to projects that I've had on the South Coast also, is that a lot of the times when, research or NGOs are going in, they're trying to extract information from a community, there's a certain pattern about it. You go in, you ask the questions, people get their, 500 shillings, and then everyone goes away. But that doesn't sometimes feel like any kind of satisfaction. But certainly when when the stories were happening, when we asked, like, for example, the women, the story of the monkey that John was talking about, there's like little giggles, like people's demeanor changes, physically they're like, or, oh, they're looking around at each other for, what stories do you know? Because certainly everybody will have their own stories. And then when one person kind of offers a story, then suddenly people are just, their physicality changes, or I noticed that anyway, the people are more relaxed. When we first started with the story that I was talking about, when John kind of did the Fimbo one, you become like a little child again, even if you're 70, 80 years old. So I think sort of physically, you kind of notice the difference that people kind of feel when a story or a song or something a little bit completely different from what is expected takes place. So for me, I certainly noticed the demeanor changing whenever the stories or the songs were taking place.
For us Nandis, we were using different ways of predicting, especially traditionally. We were being told stories of reading from the beer pots. There is a way that when the beer is brewing, you are able to see not only weather, but also you can predict other issues that affect the community, including like wars, like the harvest. You'll be able to see whether this year will be a good year or bad year, and also any other thing that can affect the community. And also they were using also shoes. They throw shoes like this, and they're able to read from that. But over time, I think those things have faded away in my community, the way I come from. The education and science have a bit taken over from around 80s and 90s, when we used to get the information from our elders. Nowadays, you don't get those boys sitting around what we call kokwas. We call kokwa here, where in the evening there's at fireplace, you sit there with your father, and mothers will sit in the kitchen there with their daughters. But that one has, I think, over time gone down or faded away. But the way the culture here is still strong with the Pokots, they still hold that as valuable. They still hold many ceremonies. In my place around 90s, the traditional ceremonies stopped.
This intergenerational conversation that needs to happen. There was a lot of times when the children were just kind of on the perimeter, and there's not a lot of, we didn't really speak to like family groups in a sense. It was, you would speak to the old man of the group, or we'd speak to, certain things, but it was never a full conversation where the youth, who are the future, were incorporated at an equal level, I suppose, which wouldn't happen, but because you have the knowledge of the elders. But it would be interesting to see how, a group that was a wider generational group would actually, how that conversation would roll out. So yeah, I think that was really fascinating. And also just, in the way of, is particularly when the old men were lamenting about, the young people are like this, the young people are like this, whether there is a way actually of integrating that ITK with the education system. Is there a role that the elders can play in the schools also? Because there are certainly a lot of children who are not getting modern education in the schools, who are also not getting that much ITK as well. So I guess for me, that generation, it's quite a dangerous position to be in, because they're losing a lot of information from the old way of life, but they're not getting the information in the new way of life. So what is the future for them? Is there a way that the older generations and the younger generations can actually come together to make that transition smoother, can make it in a way that they're not losing all of that ITK, that all of that, the ways of being, it's not a case of like whatever is modern is good and whatever is old is bad. It's, what is the balance? Can we embrace living in these beautiful houses, but they're temporary homes because, they're going to be moving in a few months' time, but other people are saying, well, brick houses and mabati roofs are the way of the future. and in that climate, it's like you're living in an oven. So it's, it's about how do you use, for me, I suppose my interest is like, how do you use ITK to kind of have that balance of, what is old is not bad, but what is new is not completely threatening. Is there a way that the two of them can come together? But in order for that to happen, you need the conversations to be taking place between the older generations and the younger generations that are really equal, that are really where the young people also have a voice and where the different genders also have a voice. I think those conversations also need to be happening in a way. They just need to be happening.
In the next and final episode, both of us and our meteorologist colleague Callistus reflect on how we'll put what we have learned into practice.
Thanks to our project partners Adverse Camber and ICPAC, and the project funder, the British Council.